Welcome to Connect and Grow on Wednesday night. We're so glad you're here with us. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Pixar movie Wall-E. So if you haven't seen it, to refresh your memory, it's about a robot on Earth who falls in love with a robot from space. They go to space, they come back to Earth. There's much more to it than that, but we'll talk about it in a few minutes. Let's have a word of prayer before we get started. Heavenly Father, I do thank you for this day. I thank you for each person that's joining with us tonight and those who will watch later. Father, I ask that as we talk about this movie, Lord, that our conversation would be of you, and Lord, that we could see a taste of faith in our culture. Just bless us, guide our thoughts in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Amen. All right, well, over the last couple days, I've watched Wall-E 3 times. Does that make me an expert? No, but some of our conversation will be based on this book. It's called The Wisdom of Pixar. It's an animated look at virtue in the Pixar movies. The gentleman that wrote it, Robert Villard, is a theologian and very knowledgeable about those things, but
before we fully jump into it, I just want to say if we've been having some connection issues in the building.
Right. Yep.
We are at the Christ Church building, and yes, I'm over here on a separate camera. That's why if I push my hand this way, Pastor Jenny is pretty far away. Yeah, but we if our connection goes down, I apologize. We've just been having some connection issues that way, but I'll be over here.
Technology.
I know. I'll let you know. Well, you'll see if the connection goes down, but if it does, we'll try and reconnect. If not, I apologize in advance. We're working on it.
Yes.
Seems like it's my tagline nowadays. We're working on it.
We're working on it. Please be patient. We'll be back if it's not too much time. But anyway, the movie starts out with this little robot. Well, the movie actually starts out with the music from Hello, Dolly.
Yep.
Hello, Dolly, and they're doing a panoramic view of the area, showing all these piles of garbage, and then they go down to a little robot who he's more like a trash compactor, I would say, and he's tasked with the job of cleaning up the planet, and you know, we could get into a discussion about the environment, but I don't think, and we talked about that a little bit before, I don't think that's the major theme. We know that is a concern that we should have, that we should be about. But according to the gentleman who wrote this book, he chose to emphasize on technology and technology's effect on our community and on even on our faith, if you will. And as you look at the movie and technology, the way that technology was used, as far as it's almost seems like a saving element, because the people were taken on a spaceship and lived in space for 700 years. And while they were in space, the technology that was on the spaceship took care of their every need. They went from being normal-sized folks to being people that were overweight, that hardly ever walked. If you watch the movie, you see they look like, for lack of a better phrase, if you take your hand and blow it and make a hand puppet, you know, that's kind of how they looked. As far as
overinflated.
Yeah, overinflated. But I guess the issue that I'd like to focus on is the technological effects that even though technology was supposed to be a saving grace, what it did to the people on that ship. It caused them to be basically lazy, and I don't want to say worthless, but they just existed.
Right.
I I was telling these guys the other day, as we talk, one of the things that happens in the movie is everybody they're sitting in a lounge chair. What's the name of it? Not hydro, but floats on air. Isn't there? Anyway,
a hover chair.
Yeah, a hover chair. And they're all in these hover lounge chairs, and they've got a screen like 6 inches from their face, and that's all they're focused on. And if they ever need anything, they talk to the screen, they reach out their arms, and a drink or a meal or whatever comes to them. All of their drinks, all of their meals are drink form. So they get anything that they want. That's what they're told that they want. And so they're focused on their screen, and that's pretty much their life, is that screen. And how corollary that is to our lifestyle today, because we are, well, especially now in the pandemic, we are relying on the screen for a lot of things that we didn't rely on before. As Danielle points out, our worship times, our corporate worship times, are on screen. Hopefully, we're going to be coming back this Sunday, but what do you guys think? Where do we want to go from there? Now that I gave all the movie away, we sat here and talked for 20 minutes before. So, what do you think we're getting close to that in our society with the cell phones and with the iPads and with the laptops and those things? I mean, are we so reliant on the screen and on the internet that we can hardly exist outside of it? I mean, in our free time, what do? Do we sit down and read a book? Do we do gardening? Or do we play games on our cell phone or on our computers? Or
read our book on our computers or
read our book on our computers.
Yeah.
Well,
one of the things that I found really interesting in this pandemic with school especially, my students, I don't know how most students were, but my students hated the fact that they had to do everything on their computer. They wanted to be in person. They wanted to learn face to face. I can't even tell you how many of them said, I hate this online learning. I really need to be in school. I don't understand it. Like, I need you to explain it and be there to tell me how to do it. And so I thought it was an interesting take on that, because when they're in class, I'm always on them about putting their phones away or their Chromebooks away, because that's what they want to focus on. And so when that was their main thing they had to use, all of a sudden they didn't want to do that, and they saw the value in some other
face-to-face.
Yeah, face-to-face and conversations.
Yep. And I think even us as a church have found, I don't know how many people we've had saying, please, let's go back, let's meet corporately. And of course, that we're taking baby steps to get there, but it is coming. But we're tired of our only communication being a television set or an iPhone or an iPad. We know the value of exercise. We know the value of eating a good meal. We appreciate that we can go to the restaurant and actually sit down and have a good meal, rather than call on the phone to get somebody to deliver something. But technology, it has its good and it has its not so good. And sometimes, you would think as the people on the ship, they didn't know anything different. They had been on that ship around 700 years. So we didn't figure out how many generations that was, but that was a lot of generations. And they didn't know any different. There's one spot in the movie where Wall-E, which is a rogue robot who was from the time before, arrives on the ship, and he moves the screen in front of one of the ladies, and her eyes get huge, and she says, "Wow, I didn't know this even existed." So her whole world was on that little screen. And how much of that, I mean, I know that's extreme, but I'll talk a little bit about my son, and I'll probably get in trouble for this. But he comes home, he goes in his room, and he plays video games. Comes out to eat, goes in his room and talks on his cell phone. Is that communication? Is there I know that he has times when he socializes, but sometimes it drives me crazy. But sometimes, I mean, I don't know that he can relate to his old folks. Sometimes kids have trouble relating to mom and dad, but that's a whole nother show. Anyway, you guys, come on. You were talking like a lot. Now let's see. Let's hear what you have to say.
Talking about us here in the room?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, before we jump into more stuff, as Pastor Jenny's been talking, we've had our chat going. First, I want to say welcome Evelyn and Melissa and Danielle, and I know it says Tommy, but that's Brian and Jan, and I believe Larry also. Just want to welcome you guys, and thanks for joining us this evening. Had a couple comments. I'm going to ask Brian, first of all, what do you mean by that? I just want to make sure before we address your comment, especially as we talk about Revelation, which is a bit of a sticky wicket as it is, that we know exactly what you're saying, so that we can chat about it the best we can. And Jan chimed in. We already had Pastor Denny, you addressed Danielle.
Yep.
Talking about parallels with technology today in corporate worship. Jan said, interestingly, I'm going to put this on the screen. Interestingly, our 4-month-old granddaughter does not really like to have her picture taken. She wants to interact with a live face, not an iPhone. And then she said, her smile almost immediately fades when you hold up an iPhone. And I just want to say it's probably not a dig on Apple. It's probably not just iPhones.
Right.
I know that's not what you meant, Jan. And then Melissa just said, my friends can't even put down their cell phones when they come over to hang out. Interesting.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
right.
What's that say?
Yeah, I'm going to reserve a few of my comments because I want us to dig a little deeper into these things
Yeah.
first. But just some things that I want to throw out. I think we're hitting on a few different beats. That of consumption and consumerism. Is technology a means to an end or the end itself? And consumerism, technology means to an end, and kind of along with that is differentiating between a tool and a crutch. I think that especially as Jesus followers, we need to have all this in mind, because if our lives are to be about following Jesus and finding other people and turning them into disciples of Jesus also, we have to know what we're getting taken in by. So, but before I make any more comments, those are just the few beats that. So if anyone has anything to address as far as consumption and consumerism, which again I'm just trying to pull out things that you were talking about.
Right.
Well, I think with Jan's comments about her 4-month-old granddaughter, I don't know, Sherry, do you want to make a comment about our 7-month-old granddaughter?
Who's 8 months now.
8-month-old granddaughter?
Yeah, she's pretty much the same way. When the phone comes out, because our daughter videos, we do Marco Polo, and she'll send videos of her, and she doesn't want to do anything when that camera's out and on her. And they try to limit her screen time, as you say. They don't let her hold the phone or do anything with the phone. But yeah, I don't know what it is about that, but she does light up when she sees people. And that's. And again, I'm not
by any means. When I say I'm not an expert in what I'm about to say, I mean like whatever the opposite of an expert is. That's what I am. I have just heard and read some things that say, you know, we come out of the womb pre-wired to see
Right.
human faces.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is also why. Have you ever looked at like? I mean, this doesn't count because it's reclaimed wood. It's all
Right.
broken up. But if you look at like a panel of wood, and you see a couple knots and like 3 knots, you're like, that's a face.
It's a face.
Right?
Yep.
We see faces in everything, and I think that there's something hardwired in us to recognize faces. And I was reading a while ago where they were having infants recognize like the faces in 3D spaces versus 2D spaces.
Right.
Uh-huh.
And we actually have, eventually we kind of get the hang of it and our brains work it out. But yeah, infants actually have a harder time identifying faces. And again, they're not like, they can't see what's actually in the baby's
Right.
brain. But just based on the reactions, they're quicker to identify faces in real 3D space, like right in front of them in person, just like you're saying, Jan, than on a screen. Or
Right.
that also includes a photograph, a painting. And so as we talk about technology, what isn't technology?
Yeah, what isn't technology?
What isn't technology?
I mean,
And
certainly a
Yeah.
photograph would be
it's technology.
a
Right.
technology, right? So,
We didn't always have paintings either.
Right.
I mean, everything once wasn't.
Yeah.
It came about at a certain point. So I don't want to play devil's advocate too much. I don't like advocating for the devil, but I that is something that we need to consider.
Right.
So yeah, that whole idea
Right.
of facial recognition, it's an important part of just us as people.
Yeah.
And it makes sense that your granddaughters wouldn't want to, granddaughter, right?
Granddaughter.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Just
granddaughter.
making sure I'm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes
Just
sense
one.
that they wouldn't want to
Right.
interact with a flat piece of glass or plastic.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things that he points out in the chapter on Wall-E, and talking about electronics, is the good and the bad. You know, because we do get to be in church or be a part of a church or a part of school learning. The electronics or technology allows us to do that. Of course, when I was growing up, technology really didn't allow us to do it live anyway. We could watch a television station maybe, but now we have the world at our fingertips with our cell phones. You know, if we have a question about anything, what do? Google it, right? So we've, in a lot of ways, we've taken our need to research, our need to study, our need to interact with people, with text and all that stuff, and put it in this little device. And I know that I've talked to a lot of parents who sit down with their kids at a meal and they're all talking on their devices and not talking to each other, or some of them will be sitting next to each other and not talking, but they're on their devices talking to each other on their devices.
Well, here's where I'm actually going to push back a little bit, is just on the comment of kids and parents and adults in this generation. Whenever there's this term called juvenoia, which has basically, if you go and read through past history books and periodicals, there's always someone ready to jump on the previous generation for the new technologies, and they can't seem to put down they would rather write I can't remember where it's from, but there was this periodical, an article in a newspaper that says kids these days would much rather pick up a pen and write a letter than actually go and see people face to face, and that was seen as evil.
Right.
As
Right.
bad.
Right.
And now we're like, well, why can't you just sit down and write a letter? It's just nice to write a letter, and instead you got to text people. Like,
Yeah.
and that's where I'm kind of coming from, a means to an end versus just the end itself. And then the idea, I think a lot of this has to do with personal experience, because I don't see any separation in generations and age with technology use right now. I see just as many middle-aged and elderly people sitting on their tablets and smartphones.
Yeah, I agree.
It's true.
And in the
I would
same
agree.
scenarios, too.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm at a restaurant. I see an elderly couple both sitting on their smartphone.
Yeah.
Not talking,
Not talking.
They're
They may be
doing
talking
what-
to somebody, but
yeah,
not the person in
not-
front of them.
Right.
or if they are, they're
Yeah.
talking on the phones to the person in front of them.
We used to have when our kids were all home, and technology was, I mean, cell phones were really,
Relatively new.
Yeah, relatively new. And we would have no non-technology days. And the kids would actually ask for it.
So you did turn on light switches?
Yeah, right, yeah. No device day.
No
Let me
device
say that.
days,
No
yes.
device day. And we would,
sitting in chairs?
play games, and, we have a lot of conversations with our children
Yeah.
and talk, but
Well-
yeah, they would ask, can we just have a no technology
Yeah.
day, and just to decompress
Right.
and
Well, and getting back to when I was a kid, our device was a television. I come from the television generation, if you will. And my folks had to pull us away from the TV. Technology has so much been a part of our lives. Even, I mean, you can go back thousands, I don't know, hundreds of years anyway. When was the printing press invented? And how that changed the whole scope of
1500s,
Yeah.
1400s, yeah,
changed the whole scope of faith for sure.
right.
Because the first thing they printed were Bibles. One of the first things they printed were Bibles, and before that,
The Gutenberg press.
yeah,
1440.
1440. The Bible.
Sorry, 1450.
Guess what? He Googled it, and
Yeah.
He Gutenberged it.
but I mean, technology has changed. In a lot of ways, it's made it better. But as the author points out, pornography is a multi-billion-dollar industry too, from the internet.
Right.
So
Well, and even bringing in that part of it. So I want to ask a couple questions. Want to get to what we have in the chat, but I want to ask a couple questions to you guys. So you brought up a few different points of so technology in your day, and,
Right.
the different measures that were taken to limit its use, or maybe the ways that it was demonized, or but especially as followers of Jesus, when we're always trying to take into account who we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to express that, being how are we being a follower of Jesus, and how are we worshiping him daily, and how are we following his mission, carrying out the commands that he gave us. Why? That's the big question. Why should we limit, or why should we not limit technology in some ways?
Well, anything that takes your eyes off of God is not good. I mean, so it's a distraction, and technology would just be another one of those distractions. But so could reading a book, or so could
Which is technology.
Right.
or
A result of
spending
technology.
all your time exercising, or whatever. Anything that you do that takes your focus off of God would be a negative. But you can use technology to promote God as well. So it's
certainly.
it's how you use it, how you choose to use it, and how you choose to spend your time on it. I'd like to say that I spend all of my time, honoring God with my technology, but that would be just a flat out lie. I'm distracted way too much with it, and I'm realizing that more and more every day that, geez, I just need to put this down and get focused onto something else. So.
Yeah, the way that I see it, or kind of what it sounds like you're saying, is it's more about the human element.
Correct.
Everything, and this is just a direction that I'm coming from, is everything that wasn't made by God is technology. I mean, directly made by God. Like he made the sticks in the dirt, but as soon as I pick up the stick and start using it to hit something, I just made a tool, which is technology.
Or a weapon.
Or a weapon, right.
Which is a type of tool.
Right.
But that's technology, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
from the ground up is whatever we have, technology and you said exercising, it's activity.
Right.
That's not technology. It's actually not technology. We found something that's not technology. But it's
Unless
how
you're
you-
exercising on a treadmill
Some
or a
equipment,
you
row
yeah.
have
machine.
technology
Or
Yeah, yeah.
to exercise, yeah. But it's the human element of,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
how am I using this tool? How is
Right.
it being used? And there's
Right.
going to be pitfalls to everything.
Right.
Yeah. So, I guess that answers the question of why. Why? So that was why limit. But why might it be good to? I would use the word leverage technology instead of we. So we just had. I'm not going to go back too far, but we are going to scroll back a little bit before we go too
Yeah.
far. But Danielle said kind of off topic. I don't think it's off topic.
Right.
But it seems generation things have been brought up. There's often a fear of bringing technology into the church, more or less a fear of change. And then Melissa says, I feel technology excludes the older generation. It's a very interesting comment given the context of where we're sitting right
Yeah.
now and who's engaging.
Well, I think the older generation excludes technology in a lot of ways. I mean,
I think that's part of it, yeah.
yeah, we use it. We're glad to use it, but you want me to figure out how to work it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how to set my VCR or how to.
Oh, no one knows how to set VCRs.
Well,
that's just
Except your 4-year-old
Yeah.
child.
I mean, even in,
excuse me.
you know, if you go from technology into the manufacturing realm, I mean, a lot of the older guys will learn how to run a machine at their place of employment, but when it comes to figuring out how to work the microwave at home, they don't want to deal with it. I mean,
It's a convenience. It's what
Yeah,
you,
it's
what
a
you want to
convenience.
invest your time and energies into.
And comfort.
And comfort.
and comfort, yeah.
I'm comfortable where I'm at, and even if something could bring me more comfort, I don't want to venture into that, excuse me, uncomfortability for the moment to even gain more comfort,
Right.
which is another theme of Wall-E, where they were.
But if my
obsessed
livelihood
with
depends
comfort,
on it, I'm going to learn it.
for the most part, some
For the
don't.
most part, right.
Some don't. Yeah. So let's see. Melissa, I definitely think that we will get to your. We've got a whole string of comments coming through, and they're all very, very good.
Yes.
But we were finishing up another thought. I lost. You guys have the thought to pick up the thread, or
bringing technology into the church
Okay,
was
yeah.
the comment
Yeah.
I think that Danielle
Yeah.
had, and
know.
I
We're
mean
here
I
right now.
think that needs to be. That is going to be the future. I mean, it's going
Well,
to have to
yeah.
move forward. It's like everything. It's change. Change is hard. But you know what? I kind of saw this pandemic as twofold: a way for schools to rethink how they educate students, because we know that we've been teaching the same way for 200 years, and things have to change. And we've been doing church for 2,000 years. Well, no, because they used to do it much more radically back in the day. But we've been pretty comfortable in church and doing things the same. And it's hard. We know that our numbers have been going down. And maybe we need this to look at. Hey, we can reach so many more people if we just use technology. To like you said, we have
Yeah.
people in South Carolina that are watching. And,
Right.
I did an
Or that they're watching. in
yeah,
South
they're
Carolina.
watching
Yeah.
in South Carolina. I did an online Bible study, and I had people from multiple states that participated, and it was people that I just knew from all walks of life, and that was really interesting and really a fun thing to do. And so I just think it's how we need to stop and reevaluate how we use it and what we're going to do with it moving forward.
Well, and one of the things,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
one of the things that I always touch on, or I think about in technology, and as a church, we want to reach a younger generation or younger people.
Or any generation.
Or any
Any
generation,
generation,
yeah.
yeah.
But when you walk into a church, and this has been my experience, the epitome of their technology is a cordless microphone. Well, for the kid who's been growing up with computers and cell phones and everything at the touch of their finger, when they walk into a room that's like that, they're uncomfortable. They don't know how to react. Sit on my hands and listen to somebody for 45 minutes or an hour. We need to be able to provide a place that they're comfortable with as well. And I know that some of the older folks are uncomfortable having a TV in the sanctuary.
We have projectors, not
Yeah,
TVs.
yeah. Well, whatever.
Same difference.
But yeah, a monitor. Excuse me.
Yeah,
a
no,
monitor.
I'm just
Yeah.
just messing around.
We've been. A lot of churches have been denying the. I don't want to say importance, but the effectiveness of technology when used correctly in the church.
Well, and quite honestly, it's a big expense that they don't necessarily think is justified. And so that's something else that you need to look at.
Yeah.
I will say, like at our school, we're doing a construction project. We're on our third year of construction in our building, and one of the really cool things that we did was a whole technology piece of that. And in my engineering labs, I've got computer monitors, big computer monitors, all over, because students, well, first of all, we found that kids that sit in the back can't see what's up in front, so we've put them where they can see them. And also, when we do breakouts, everybody can go to a monitor and hook their computer up, and they can work as a group collaboratively around that one monitor, which used to be impossible to do. You'd have to use whiteboards or chalkboards or paper or whatever. Now they can just do it right on the technology. And boy, the stuff that I see come out of kids is fantastic and is amazing.
It's really cool to see that they're embracing that. We're talking about the school system right now. So
Right,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
we can't stay on that subject too long, but
Right.
it is really cool to see how they're embracing not just, the kids use it, so we got to integrate it. It's purposeful.
Right,
It's
right.
a tool. It's a means
It's
to
a
an
tool.
end.
Right,
That's
right,
exactly right.
right.
And engineering is all about technology.
Well,
when you really
right.
get down
Yeah.
to
Right.
it.
Well, yeah.
But I mean, I bring that up to say that this is the experiences that they're having as students, and so why wouldn't they expect those same kind of experiences in other parts of their
Right.
life,
Right.
church, whatever.
So a slightly
So-
different, I won't even say different perspective, but a a different angle on the same point of view that Pastor Denny, you were expressing is, you said some people walk into, and again, I want to define my terms. So when I say worship gathering, when I say church, I don't necessarily mean worship gathering. When I say worship gathering, I mean what you typically think of as that hour on Sunday. So when someone walks in as a guest or even as another Christian that is trying to find a community, a home, they walk into a building, they walk into a room, and the epitome of their technology is like you said, a wireless microphone. Not only are they, excuse me, getting dry throat. Not only are they saying, "Oh, this is kind of weird and uncomfortable," which I would say, uncomfortability to a degree for the right reasons is a good thing.
Less distractions.
You've got to acknowledge that anytime someone who doesn't follow Jesus walks into a room where everyone's worshiping Jesus, that's going to get uncomfortable.
Well, yeah.
But we want it to be uncomfortable for the right reasons, not for the wrong ones. And so when someone does that, or when a church refuses to embrace, I don't want to say refusing to embrace all technology because that's not necessarily a good thing either, but when they refuse to acknowledge that time has moved forward, that communicates. It's not just about whether or not they're comfortable. It's they're walking, or at least how I see it, how I've walked into places is, this place does not understand me. It's not, these people here can't know me because they don't get where I come from. It's both the I'm uncomfortable, but I'm uncomfortable because no one here could possibly understand where I come from because they think wireless microphones are, oh, hey, we just installed a wireless
Right.
microphone this year. And,
Of course, that may not be the whole the whole idea of the congregation as a whole.
No.
But that's just where
It's
they're
not a
at.
purposeful
Right,
thing.
right.
It's
but
an
that's what we
implied thing.
do. That's what we do.
It's what's communicated to.
I would like to jump in just with a caution that I've also been in churches where they have all the latest bells and whistles, and it's not furthering God's kingdom at all.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I think that
It's a tool.
it's a tool, and when we put all of our faith and trust in that tool, then we've got it wrong. So I just would caution that if we do embrace that, and which we are going to have to, but that we embrace it with an understanding of how are we going to use this tool to further the kingdom, how are we going to enhance our service, not we're going to do this because we're going to draw in the masses,
No,
because
no.
that
Right.
that doesn't work
Right,
either.
right.
Well,
So
we also know that the purpose of corporate worship isn't to draw
Draw
in
in the
the
that's
masses,
correct.
right.
That's correct.
Even though that can be a very important secondary
Correct.
objective, but
But a lot of
Right.
churches
Yeah.
have that focus
Mhm.
in mind, or I don't want to say a lot of churches. Some churches that I've been in, that's you can just feel that that's their focus right away. And
and this is an interesting conversation because I've often had the perspective that like churches that have that showiness on a Sunday morning, it's been shown to me. I've gained a different perspective where, let's just say, we're in the Detroit metro area. We know Kensington Church. Pretty much everyone knows Kensington, multi-site, bunch of people, big services. I look at their Sunday morning gatherings and I'm like, oh man, that feels not like a time of worship. It feels like a presentation.
Right.
And truth be told,
It is.
Not that worship is absent, but their point isn't to come together for corporate worship. And to some degree, it's almost as if the core followers of Jesus at Kensington decided that, and this is just an example,
Right,
this could be
right,
many churches,
right.
decided that Sunday morning actually wasn't going to be their primary worship gathering. Sunday morning is one of their primary evangelistic times, and their small groups are their primary
Right.
Right,
worship
right.
gathering times. And
Right.
so now it takes a huge shift to think in those terms,
Right.
and I'm not saying that that's necessarily good or bad. However,
well, and
I know that there are places that do use technology as the end goal itself.
it
Yeah.
takes the right focus as well, because Jesus met him on a hilltop. He didn't bring the band. He didn't bring, all the lights and the cameras. He met him on a hilltop and he talked to him. And, those were the masses. And so I think that we just need to be cautious when you do things like that.
Yeah.
That you're,
You could advance the kingdom of God
Yeah.
with or
Right.
without the tech.
That's
I mean,
correct.
they did still use technology. They had baskets and they had bags, and
Right.
Right.
Well,
that's
yes.
where the greater conversation
Right,
is. But
right.
Jesus could still have reached the people without baskets and bags.
right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
But there were times, they lower those friends lowered their other friend
Right.
through the roof
Through the roof.
Right.
using pulleys. I'm sure.
Right.
They didn't have like extra long arms to reach.
Right. Right.
Right.
I don't think that any of us could make the argument that the Bible says one thing or another about this subject
Yeah,
Right.
specifically.
No, it doesn't.
But when we're keeping Jesus as keeping the main
Right.
thing the main thing, that's the main thing.
It just
Right.
needs to be genuine. Whatever you
Right.
do
Yeah.
needs to be
Right.
genuine
Yeah.
and transparent.
Okay. So-
do we want to
Yeah, let's go to some
address some of
comments.
these? Or do you have another?
Nope.
Okay.
Let's go. Let's go to the.
So we've been talking about generations and technology in the church. Pastor Denny, you addressed this, but one good thing is that churches had to up their game with technology to reach people. Now they go to church or worship with people in South Carolina as well as Fraser. Well, this one we didn't talk about as much. We talked about it a little bit.
Right.
Technology excludes the older generation. Oh, sorry. Wrong comment. Mean more the... Sorry. I feel... Oh, come on. There we go. I mean more the
Oh,
limited eyesight, hard of hearing.
etc.
I would say that isn't just older generation.
Right,
There are differently disabled people, differently and disabled people. I'm not sure the exact term to use. I always used with my mother who has cerebral palsy growing up, disabled. So it's not just those who are older
Right.
that struggle with that, but also technology can help with those things. I know so the printed word is a form of technology,
Right.
as well as the displayed word, the graphically displayed word. And one of the things that I like to emphasize is that actually, if you're talking about like field of view and like the size of text and stuff, you can make words bigger on a screen than you can in a book. And I'm not saying
Much easier to read.
you should
Right.
always do that, and it's not always useful. But yeah, it's anyway. Let's see. I agree. It's a wake-up call. It's an interesting time to be studying mass communication. I agree. Mass communication is one of those subjects.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Willow Creek used to do. Sundays were seeker-oriented, very much a showtime. Midweek worship was for the already disciples. I think there's a lot of merits to that type of thing. I think we've also learned as a church as a whole that there are some really big downsides to
Right,
that as
right.
well.
Correct.
Just like everything has
Right.
pros and
Yep.
cons.
Yep. Absolutely.
I have known people that started their religious experience there because it wasn't churchy, and that's true. That I think that's mission accomplished for them. They found Jesus,
Right.
and I can't remember who says it. There's some pastor who says we'll do everything short of sinning to find the lost.
To find the lost.
Yeah. That's not an exact quote, but
Yeah.
yeah. But I know a lot of those ideas have merit. They have a lot of merit, and use of technology again. Keep the main thing the main thing.
And to add a little bit to Melissa's comment there about starting the religious experience because it wasn't churchy, and whether you like this organization or not, but the Gideons have been putting Bibles in hotel rooms for decades, and the stories of people giving their lives over to Christ because of their accessibility to a Bible
One
in there.
small gesture.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Think
I
about
mean-
it. The printing press never existed.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it didn't exist for a long time.
Right.
The Gideons couldn't do that, but then pops on the scene, bam.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like a next day thing.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
We're
they haven't
like,
been,
hey,
they haven't
hey,
been putting
good
them in hotels since the 1400s.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, the printing press has brought a revolution in faith.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But we've kind of strayed a little bit from Wall-E here.
Yeah, I was straight from the movie, but the topic that it
But,
brings
yes,
up
but
of,
yes,
of
but-
our engagement with technology,
technology
I think is
certainly
a really
is.
important conversation as Jesus
right.
followers.
I
See,
think
so to speak,
I
yeah.
think that the comments about the seeker-oriented services kind of goes back to our discussion we had last week with the emotions, because I think oftentimes those type of services evoke a lot of emotion, and people have emotional reactions to that, and then they have this faith based on emotions, and then as soon as, or not faith, but this understanding based on emotions, and then as soon as they
tough
hit a
times
wall
come,
or
right.
something challenges them, they don't have the deep understanding to follow through with their faith. Like, it's just another
Yeah.
emotional reaction, and so they tend to, I don't want to say it's not a real conversion, I don't want to say that, but it's based on emotions, and we know that emotions are just a reaction to something.
It
and
stays in
they-
its infancy.
Yes,
Yeah.
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 And I think that there's a equal opposite fallacy on the other side of if your followership of Jesus is purely rooted in only intellect and there is no
Right.
No whole response of your person.
Careful, you're getting back into the quadrilateral stuff
Well,
here.
Yeah.
I know. No, this is why that's an important conversation. But that the difference between you can be very I don't want to say infantile, but you can have a very young, immature faith in both intellectualism and emotionalism.
Right.
And so what I find very interesting is there's always those on one side or the other saying, well, those people are the shallow ones, or those people are the,
Right.
and then the others who are saying, well, if you can't raise your hands and get into it, then you don't have the real experience. You don't know who Jesus is yourself.
Yeah.
And people are saying, well, you can't quote the books of the Bible, and so you don't have. And really, it's
It's just a shallow faith. There's
Yeah.
no roots that have taken
Right.
hold. and-
we have
On
to
both
acknowledge
sides.
us as whole people.
Yes.
And we need to follow Jesus with our whole heart, soul, mind,
Right.
and strength.
Right.
Right.
And no service from any church, and I hate to use the word service, no gathering, no ordered worship or disordered worship will ever do that for you.
Right.
You cannot be fed Jesus your whole life. you have to. You've got to seek Him
Yourself.
Right.
No one can just spoon feed Jesus into your mouth your whole
Spoon
life. They can show you Him. They can witness Him to you. Jesus can be revealed to you through other Christians, but one way or the other, you got to take a hold of that and just relent and let
Right.
Jesus, let the cross of
Right.
Christ count
Right.
for you.
Right.
That's Jeremiah. If you ever watch this, I stole that from you. You know who you are. Let's see. Yeah, that exactly what you
What
addressed.
Sarah
Willow
was
Creek
saying.
determined that people were not growing in faith. They were a mile wide and an inch deep. Yep, I think that also happens with other places that claim to be
Right.
very deep.
Right.
Still a mile wide and an inch deep, just in a different way.
Well, and you know, you and I have talked, Aaron, about the Billy Graham Crusades and
Yep.
how many people flooded the altars at the Billy Graham Crusades, but there was no.
Because it was an emotional response again,
Yeah.
Yes.
with nothing
Right.
more than just that emotion.
Right.
So
And-
I've always said that I think that's why the charismatic movement really had a hard fall, because everything was so emotional based. And
Yeah.
I mean, I can say that because we were part of that movement for a long time. But
Right.
it was just you don't get beyond that emotional response, and you
why faith in a movement is going to fail you.
yeah,
Right,
right,
right.
right. And you get that holier than thou. This is the only way to worship, and has to be like this. And
Right.
if you don't believe this, then you're not experiencing the full understanding of God.
And we don't want to turn this into Christian bashing.
No,
session.
no, no,
Right,
no.
right, right.
Because
No.
what we
And,
acknowledge, just like what
You
Paul
learn
says,
from it.
follow Paul, follow Apollos, whatever.
Right,
Jesus
right.
Christ is being preached.
Right.
Jesus Christ crucified is
That's-
becoming known.
That's
right.
right.
That's who we
Um,
follow.
So net positive, even if it's but we're trying to help each other.
Yes.
Iron sharpening iron.
Right.
We're trying to as the church, both in this locality and in the United States and the world, know what that means. And as we're talking about the church and technology,
Sometimes we use technology to do.
yeah,
Yeah,
we do.
yeah.
I mean, we're sitting right here,
Right here, right now, right.
I got a camera here, you got a camera there.
And we have our teaching hours on Sunday morning and our
Yep.
Sunday morning worship service.
I guess what I'm
online.
saying is that there's just not one right way.
no,
Yeah.
there
There,
isn't.
you,
Right,
you know, you
right.
can implement all of these things, and whatever sparks the interest in you, you're going to worship where you're comfortable, and so we have to make it comfortable
Yeah.
for people.
And one of the neat things that I've experienced, and I've said before during this pandemic, is I've been able to, after we get our service done, I can go home and sit on the couch and watch what my colleagues are doing in their churches. I have a friend in Texas. I watch his service down there.
Yeah, referencing just what Jan said earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So technology helps in that endeavor, because since I've been a pastor, I haven't really been able to sit down and watch what my other colleagues are doing, or how they preach, their preaching style, or anything like that. So it's been good, and I feel I'm getting fed as well, rather than as a pastor, it seems like you're always doing all of the.
Well, I think that brings up an interesting point, and I'm latching onto a specific thing you said.
Yep.
Which is that you're able to watch.
Well,
You're
yeah.
able to watch. You're getting fed, and this idea of whether it's seeker, whatever your motivation is, there is a degree to which the church has been using technology to still be a provider of goods and services to be consumed, which is also why I try to avoid the word
Right,
service.
right.
But our job as the church isn't to do that through any of our technology. There may be aspects to what we do that do, if we put out a teaching video, that's meant to be in some way consumed, but it's really corporate worship is meant to be engaged with.
Right.
Right.
And so it's all about how you're using it. It's not that broadcasting
Right.
worship is evil or bad,
No.
or that it's even inherently good. It's
Well,
how
and-
you're using it.
And I guess I feel like when I'm sitting through a service that I'm watching, I can still engage in the singing.
Yeah.
I can actually engage in the preaching, even though they might not hear me say amen or that was a good point. I can agree with them,
And you can engage
and
them without doing those
engage.
things,
Yeah. But ideally, in an ideal situation, we would be where they're at. But because of
It enables you to do something you wouldn't be able to do
Right,
otherwise.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So-
no, I totally get it.
and-
Like I said,
yeah.
I was latching onto what
right,
you said.
right,
not
right,
what you
right,
meant.
right, and and I wasn't trying to.
I know. I just want to make sure
Yeah.
you know I'm on your team.
Right, I know you are. So-
Well, I think sometimes, like, you talk about church needs to be engaging and it needs to be, but I think we need to be, again, cautious about what we view as engaging, because somebody up there teaching, that is a form of engagement.
Can
Like,
be.
It
yeah,
should be. If
Should
they're
be.
if they're a good teacher,
if they're
it
a good
should be.
teacher, yeah,
So, but that takes discipline on the person who's listening as well.
It's a
it is a two-way thing.
That's
yeah.
my main point with
Yeah.
engagement is it's a two-way,
Two-way
street.
street.
Is
Yeah.
not about whether the person is engaging, because that's just another version of providing
Correct.
a product. But it's the onus is on both the leader and the participant to be
Right.
a participant
Right.
and not a passive observer.
And that
Right.
that comes back to when you come to a worship service or gathering or whatever you want to call them. You need to come ready.
yeah.
If you're not ready to receive and to be part of
and to participate,
and
to
to
give,
participate,
and to engage,
then you're
engage.
not doing your part.
Be a participant and not an observer.
Yeah.
Right,
And
right.
that goes, and this is why I see broadcasting corporate worship and other things that we may do in the future as a net positive, is because really, if you are prepared as a worshiper to worship, the format and scenario
Shouldn't matter.
They don't not matter, but they matter much less.
Right, right,
There's lots of nuance in a lot of that. There's a lot of opinions
Right,
that can
right,
be shared
right,
throughout all
certainly.
that. But really, there's, when you boil it down to, it's not something being done to or for you. It's something for you to come and
right.
be a participant.
It's about
and not an
Jesus.
observer.
It's got to be
Yeah.
about Jesus and how we respond to Him through various means.
Well, and I know as a teacher, and I think this has probably been one of the hardest things for you, is when I'm teaching, I am always adjusting to my crowd. And so I'm always like watching, and I'm always cognizant of what the students are doing, so that I'm adjusting as I go, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't go there yet, and so I think as a pastor, when you're just doing it live stream, you don't have that audience, and so you're maybe not adjusting like that. But I mean, that's
Well,
just
and even in this
part of-
scenario, which is
Yeah.
why we're asking so
Right.
often,
Right.
say stuff, even if
Right.
even if we can't address it directly right then.
Right.
or we'll just keep rambling on like we are.
and we don't want to do that. Danielle agrees. We touched on a great point. Hard to get interaction through a video. And I think that's another point, is that human interaction is
Yes.
different than even participation.
Correct.
You can have engagement and participation through a screen, but you can't have interaction.
Correct.
Right.
You can in this scenario, limitedly, but you can still have it.
Right.
No technology can entirely replace something else.
Right.
And
Right.
that's a really broad brush to paint with.
Yes.
But I don't think that broadcasting worship or what I would call broadcasting worship leadership cannot replace being in person.
Right.
But being in person also is not the same as being as having that to broadcast. There's advantages and disadvantages that are different to both.
Right.
I think of the person who can't carry a tune with a shovel, and they can sit in front of their TV or in front of their iPad, and they can sing at the top of their lungs, and it's not going to mean a hill of beans to anybody else but them. It frees them up to express to God in ways that they maybe feel inhibited when they're around other people. I mean, not saying that should be the way it is, but that is the way it is.
Yeah.
And I like to envision when I'm preaching, people saying amen. I mean, that drives me as I preach. It helps me.
It's that feedback
Yeah,
that you get.
And
The craft of speaking is
Right.
much more difficult
Right.
when you don't have, when you're not talking to people.
right,
Correct.
You're just
right,
talking to a This is why broadcast journalists and TV anchors, it's a different skill than public speaking.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Public speakers can't often get on camera and do the same thing they do, and vice versa. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance and depth to all this. From Wall-E, we're just talking about the technological aspect
Right,
that's
right.
throughout the whole movie. We haven't got to any of the other topics. I don't think we really.
do we
really
have
did.
to?
I don't think we have to.
Yeah.
It seemed like a lot of people hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay. You know, I know the purpose of these conversations is we're using these as a jumping off point to talk
Right.
about
Yes.
a greater.
And I would say this isn't a bad movie to watch.
Oh no.
I mean, it's rated G. I don't see that it brings a terrible message like some of them.
He's
do.
a robot with a lot of personality.
Yeah,
He is adorable.
Yeah.
he is.
I mean, props to Pixar. I mean, good art is good art.
Right.
And
Right.
they do it well.
yeah, yes,
Almost everything that they've put out is good art, one way or another.
right,
yeah.
right.
Great storytelling, great characters.
And it
Right.
didn't. I
You
don't.
ever cried over a robot before?
Well, I didn't think there was. I mean, there's always an agenda when you make a movie, but I didn't feel like there was an overarching agenda behind the movie.
I think you might get some people that disagree with that.
There might be.
I could see how there could be disagreement. I didn't feel like
Yeah,
there was either.
right.
But I could see how there could be disagreement with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
What do you guys think?
well.
Come on, two-way interaction.
Yeah. Well, and I guess the overall agenda. Most of the movie, I thought I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. There's very little dialogue.
Right.
I think I read like the first 22 minutes. There's no dialogue. I think I read.
Is it the
Yeah.
I think the first words that, aside from "Hello, Dolly,"
Yeah.
I think the first words that are said are them trying to say each other's
Each
names.
other's
Right.
names,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It's a good movie. And speaking of that, Danielle put only movie that has no talking for a good portion of the first part of the movie. I'm talking about spiritual disciplines, and one of the spiritual disciplines is silence. Can't say any more than that.
Yeah. I had a friend, and if he ends up watching this, you'll know who you are. I had a friend who told me about when he was in youth group. He had a pastor, preacher, someone who taught them about the discipline of silence and solitude. And both things that can be very good. But I think we can also agree that, just like with anything, the definition of too much is too much.
Yeah. Yep.
Too much of anything is bad.
Right.
And so this guy harped on it so long that my friend took it so seriously that he believed that the pinnacle of being a true follower of Jesus was just being silent and spending your whole life only praying. And we see in history that there are
Right.
people who take that seriously too.
Right.
But I think that when practiced well, and so talking about Wall-E, the first 22 minutes being
Yeah.
dialogueless,
right.
it's not like there was no noise.
Right.
Right.
But there's a point where anything done purposefully for the purpose of getting closer to Jesus to accomplish his mission, awesome. But once it becomes the end itself, the
Right.
goal itself,
Yep.
then we
Yep.
just miss the mark again.
Yeah. And I would,
I know you're going to preach on it later, so you
Yeah.
don't have to preach on it tonight.
no, I would say, if you were to watch this movie, at least when I was watching the movie, I didn't think about there's not being any dialogue. I mean, that wasn't.
Yeah, you don't miss it.
Yeah, it's
There's-
not
There's
like
still communication.
right.
Correct.
There was
even
still
if there's no
communication.
dialogue. Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
So
Very well done.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Man. So would you say Wall-E practiced the spiritual discipline of silence?
no,
No.
he was a hoarder.
That's true.
He was a
man.
hoarder.
Well, is it this week you're preaching on frugality?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Fasting and frugality. That's
Yes,
this
fasting
Sunday.
and
It's a plug
frugality.
For
That's good.
worship this Sunday.
Will be interesting.
Fasting and frugality.
Welcome back to live worship.
Yeah.
So this Sunday, just a little tiny plug. This Sunday, we still have our worship broadcasts.
Yes,
For a
we'll
little
still
while,
be
they're going to
online.
be different from each other, the in-person and the broadcast, but eventually they will line up a little bit differently. But we have 2 in-person worship gathering times, 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. We're still providing the broadcast because we recognize a lot of people can't or shouldn't or won't be able to join us.
Right, right.
And so if you are, great. If you're not, still great. I don't know how to say that good, but
Yes.
but still join us online. And even if you come to the in-person, because it's recorded, you could still join in online
Yes.
too. You could do both. How
And
about that?
And I would just say, don't feel bad if
No.
you
Yeah.
for
No.
doing any of those.
Right.
If you don't feel comfortable coming back, don't come back.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
There is
Watch us online.
nothing bad about that.
That's right.
We understand.
I will say I'll be preaching on the same topic, but it probably won't be the same sermon at any of the services.
Slightly
so,
different words,
yeah.
same topics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Well, that's our plug for
Yeah.
Sunday night.
Right.
It is 7:30 exactly.
I think so. Yeah.
And,
Well, thank you so much
yeah.
for joining with us tonight.
Yeah.
We're always up to hear from you as far as a topic for next week. We may pick another Pixar movie. We may go another direction. I don't know.
Maybe The Matrix.
The Matrix.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't
Matrix
know.
is tough.
Yeah, The Matrix. I'm not sure how many people have watched it.
Who
Rated
here
R.
watching right
Yeah.
now has watched The Matrix? And if you're watching this later, leave in the comments, like not the live chat, but the comments, whether or not you've seen The Matrix and whether or not thumbs up
Yeah.
or thumbs down.
I have not seen it.
I have them, so I can show them. I can
They're
let you watch them.
R-rated.
I know they are. They're
There are caveats to this.
well, and I always say my favorite movie is one of my favorite movies is Shawshank Redemption, and
another
that's
great
an
movie.
R-rated movie too.
Very
so
R-rated.
I try to watch it when it comes on TNT or TBS or something when they take all that stuff out. But good
Tim
message in
Robbins,
that
Morgan
movie.
Freeman.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Right.
Powerhouse.
Yes. So anyway, we're going to call it a day for tonight or an evening for tonight. Again, thank you for joining us. Thumbs down. No Matrix.
No
Is
to
that
the Matrix.
That's
thumbs
a
down?
no
to-
Matrix.
I like The Matrix, but it's not for everybody. I get it.
Right. But like I said, I appreciate you coming. Hopefully, we'll either see you Sunday either on the screen or here in place. Waiting on my Narnia. There you go. Well, Melissa, you should come in and sit
Come in
with
and
us
discuss
as we
it,
talk
yeah.
about
I'm all
Narnia.
for
You can
Narnia.
sit
Yeah.
in one of those
Yeah.
chairs or over here, and I can be away. and-
There you go. So
It's all you.
Yep. Anyway, let's have a word of prayer before we go. Father, I do thank you for the way you work in our lives, the way you open yourself up, even through a simple movie. Lord, I just ask that that you continue to help us focus on things of you, appreciate your creation, appreciate the technology that you've given wisdom to men and women to build or to make. And Lord, we ask that we as your followers would use this to bring you glory more than anything else. Just be with us now. Give us a good evening's rest, and just bless our time in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.